You are listening to the Jobbers Court Podcast, part of the W2M Network. We're a podcast for wrestling fans old and new. Court is now in session. Hello, welcome again to another episode of Jobbers Court. We're here with the W2M Network, putting on our weekly podcast. I am Rasquatch, the king and moderator of the Roundtable of Jobbers Court, and right now I am joined by Cedric, the wise old owl of wrestling. And we have a special guest with us tonight, independent talent, Billy McNeil, who joins us from the St. Louis circuit. He's going to talk to us for about a good half an hour just about his career, and then after that we're going to bust into the other topics that we have in store. Before we get started, though, we can't officially make you a member, Billy, until we initiate you into Jobbers Court. So, Cedric, why don't you walk us through that process? What do you got for us?
Okay, I'm not really walking right now, kind of low crawling, but
all right,
it's pretty late here. But Billy, are you ready?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Okay, just want to make sure that I get the chant right. Some of the incense, the fake blood that we bought because we got in trouble for using real blood.
Yeah, that happened.
Am I right to be nervous?
No.
You'll be okay. The lamb that we had to sacrifice for you to join, though, maybe not so much.
Gotcha. Well, what can you do?
What can you do? So, you ready?
All right, here we go. Ready for the chant. Billy McNeil, you're part of Jobbers Court for real. You good?
All right. Well, welcome. Right. You are newly initiated and now a part of our wrestling round table. So, that being said, Cedric, why don't you just go ahead and get us started with our first and greatest burning question that we have for all guests.
Okay.
So what's the social security number?
I'm
sorry.
Sorry. That never works. Man.
It never does. But maybe I should give it time. Maybe like 5-10 seconds after I ask it. You never know.
Yeah, I was about to start spitting out numbers there. So yeah, I mean.
Dang it. Well, we usually like to ask from episode 1. This is the question that we started with, and so we got accustomed to ask our first time guest to just give us a quick, summary of what got them into wrestling. What made them become fans first, because I'm pretty sure that before we join in any form, the first row was fans of wrestling. And then the second part to that question would be, once you became a fan, what was that made you jump into the business itself as an indie wrestler?
Let's see, I think the earliest I can remember ever having any kind of interest in wrestling was around the time that the WrestleMania video game came out for Nintendo.
Uh-huh.
I remember being at the video store and seeing that on the shelf and just kind of, because I had something of an awareness of wrestling. I was very young at the time, obviously, but I remember seeing it and then kind of piqued my interest, and I just gotten a Nintendo at the time and went and rented it, and I don't know, it was something just completely different and outside of my realm of consciousness at the time. So I was like, okay, well, I think this is something I'll think is cool. And then I remember sticking around on, I was watching USA Network, the Cartoon Express that they used to have on there. And then after that, WWF All-American came on. So I remember watching that one day and I was immediately hooked and just started watching everything I could get my hands on. I think I rented every VHS they had at Blockbuster Video at the time, probably 10 times over, every WrestleMania up to that point, which I believe was around 5. And then just all the Coliseum home video, best of WWF volume 1 through 300 or whatever they had going at the time.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much my beginning of fandom in pro wrestling. But as far as what made me get into the business eventually, once I was probably just about done with my junior year of high school, and I remember trying to think of, what am I going to do after I get out of high school? And just having a curiosity, like, well, what does it take to become a pro wrestler? I was a huge fan of pro wrestling at the time. I had, 8,000 action figures. I had, pictures of guys all over my walls in my room and everything. And I just remember looking, like, the internet was still in its infancy at this point. So with the little bit of information that was out there, I ordered this book about how to become a pro wrestler. I believe it was by King Kong Bundy and an assortment of others. And I just remember getting that book, and in the back of the book, they had all this information about, like, here's where you go train if you want to become a pro wrestler. So just out of curiosity, I ended up calling a few of the places. A lot of the numbers didn't work, and they just had wrong information. Some of them weren't operational anymore, but I finally found one that was run by Mike Shaw, who wrestling fans might know better as Bastion Booger or Norman the Lunatic. Mm-hmm. And I ended up calling him, talked to his wife for a little bit. She pretty much handled the business end of the school. I ended up talking to her for a little while, and come to finally make the decision, like, well, I guess once I get out of high school, I'm gonna go move up to Marquette, Michigan, which is where it was, and start training to become a wrestler. So I packed up my car with everything I owned and moved 700 miles away up to Michigan and started training in a kickboxing gym with Bastion Booger.
Interesting. He was also Friar Ferguson, right?
Friar Ferguson. I believe he lasted 2 TV tapings for that one. I asked him about it. Yeah. Yeah. He said they were getting all kinds of flack from religious groups and stuff like that found it disrespectful. And he said that rather than attract controversy, they'll just change it to something else.
Yeah. And I think Bastion Booger started shortly thereafter, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah. It was about a month or two after that. He was on TV jobbing to Virgil in his first match. So things were obviously going well for him.
Well, you know what's funny? You mentioned that book with King Kong Bundy. I was recently listening to Chris Jericho's podcast, and he had Christopher Daniels and Kazarian on there. And Christopher Daniels was saying the exact same thing. Like that's how he ended up finding a place to train was also through that exact same book. So just funny how that works.
Around that period of time, like I said, the internet was in its infancy at that point. I mean, now you can find 8 million wrestling schools on there at a click of a button, but back then it was a little bit harder to find information about those things, and that seemed to be the only thing that you could find that would give you any kind of direction.
So you went up, you did your training up there in Michigan. How long was your training before you finally got to actually be in a match?
Let's see. I believe I was in training for 4 weeks before I got a spot on the show.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it's not that I was just so good that they had to put me on a show or anything. Believe me, those matches are terrible. But the thing was, I was training with a few other guys. We all lived in the same like extended stay hotel type thing, which it makes it sound a lot nicer than it actually was. But we all kind of lived together basically, and these guys had been training longer than I have, and we're off doing shows. They'd go over to Wisconsin a couple times a month and go work over there, and they were like, one of the times they were going, they asked me, hey, you want to come along for the just meet some people, whatever, get your name out there, that sort of thing, just get some experience, traveling, whatever. So I was like, sure, why not? And ended up getting put on the show against one of the guys I was training with at the time.
Well, if you started back then, then you're a veteran then for sure in this industry. So you've been around obviously for quite a long time. I was first
going on 17 years now.
Yeah. I was first introduced to your work about a year and a half ago. I helped out with some commentary at a Pro Wrestling Epic show.
Right on.
We were looking forward to seeing you because you obviously have kind of a throwback to an actual gimmick, which you don't see as often anymore. So if you were going to try to describe to somebody who hasn't ever seen your work, how would you describe your gimmick and then kind of B, what's kind of your wrestling style?
Let's see, to describe my gimmick, I wear like goofy animal masks out to the ring, and I kind of let's see, I've got a monkey, which I called Cornelius, and a unicorn, which is Ulysses, of course.
Mhm.
And then kind of take on a little bit of the mannerisms of whatever animal I happen to wear as my entrance gear that particular time. And that, I'm just beyond that. It's just me out there goofing around having fun. And I'd say my style is, I don't know, I do a lot of kicks. I do a lot of flips. I make a lot of jokes. So it's probably the best way I would describe it.
Yeah, I think sometimes when I watch you work, it kind of reminds me of like with your character that you almost don't have like a sense of technology sometimes, because I know you'll find a camera and you'll sort of be over there almost in awe of it, and it's great the way that you can do that, as far as the way you can take out, like, really start believing in what it is that you had. The other thing is that monkey mask that you have matches your skin tone like exactly. So sometimes it's I remember the first time I saw it, I was a little bit creepy because you have that whole Planet of the Apes thing going on. But yeah, I definitely dig the gimmick in general. I miss kind of like old school silly gimmicks like that sometimes. But definitely can tell you're having fun. You also, I know you did an homage to Deadpool. One of the times I seen you wrestle as well, you had your face painted up, kind of like Deadpool. But Cedric, before I take over the interview completely, what questions did you have for Billy?
No, I was gonna say I was checking one of your matches, I think it was posted about a few weeks ago, or actually about a month ago. And for someone who's been around for a while, I was look pretty young, man. That's pretty cool. And I was gonna say also that the mask thing, kind of, at first I was like, yeah, that's not the guy that we're gonna interview. And then all of a sudden they introduced him, like, oh yeah, that is the guy we're gonna interview. I'm like, I wonder who's gonna have the mask on as we're going to the interview. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's pretty difficult to talk or be heard or especially hear anything in either one of those masks. Like, especially the unicorn, I can't see anything. I just kind of gotta hope I get to the ring.
Man.
But definitely, I did notice your knees, some pretty brutal knees, some pretty good kicks, definitely some athletic moves, and you saw pretty well your own bump. So pretty good wrestling style.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't know. It's fun. I like going out there and getting thrown around and taking crazy bumps and stuff like that, because I usually don't feel it until the next day. So that's a plus.
Yeah, well, I think that's one thing about being small, smaller, is that you kind of have to, like to be, kind of tossed about. But I think I saw a match with you and Leon Mephisto from a while back, and I know, like, those are the kind of match I like to see, where a guy who's much bigger than you can sort of bully you around, and then you get to get into the comebacks and that kind of stuff in those type of matches. But
yeah, exactly.
One thing I have to, so besides obviously with Pro Wrestling Epic, I know I've seen you with Wrestling Invades America. There any other places that you work around the St. Louis area?
I work at Dynamo Pro. Unfortunately, it seems like most of the companies I work for shut down shortly thereafter, so I'm not claiming credit for that, but there's been a few other ones locally that I've worked for in the last couple of years that aren't around anymore. But right now it's just Wrestling Invades America and Dynamo Pro.
Yeah, because I think they kind of said, I think they did some kind of merger. Seems like, because Pro Wrestling Epic hadn't had a show in a while, but yeah,
they're kind of cross promoting with WIA right now.
Yeah, I know that it's nice to see you guys there, because I only have to drive, out the 10 minutes out to Belleville instead of out to St. Louis to see you guys. But
right
on. So I guess the thing would be, where did you kind of come up with this idea to do these crazy animals and and that, as far as your entrance? And then the other
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you're fine. And then the other question is, man, where do you get those boots? Because, man, it makes me think of like Big Bird or like Grover or like something with those big furry boots, depending on the color that you wear.
It must be Johnny Mundo.
Yes.
Yeah, well, sometimes.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, it's funny you call them Big Bird because that's exactly what I thought the yellow ones looked like when I first got them. I'm like, I can't wear these. I'm going to look like Big Bird. But I mean, they're fun. Recently I've been able to find them like in stores, but when I originally got them, I had to just order them online.
Really? Wow.
Where the masks came from, around the time I started doing it, there was like a internet meme with people wearing like horse masks just in everyday situations. And I thought it was hysterically funny. And so I got online. I'm like, I got to get a hold of one of those. And I found the unicorn. I was like, that's perfect. So I get the unicorn mask and eventually convinced promoters to let me wear them out for my intro. And it ended up getting pretty over. So I kept looking around for other masks, and I found the monkey mask, which I don't know. I feel it's pretty realistic looking. So
very much.
Yeah, it creeps my wife out to no end. It's hilarious. But the mouth actually moves when you talk, when you have it on and stuff. So I picked that up, and I love that mask. It's great.
All right. So I think before you did this and you started everything with the masks, were you doing the same kind of gimmick before that, or is there anything else maybe that you did in the past? Obviously, 17 years of experience under your belt. What would be some other types of things that you tried to do?
See, when I first started, it was actually my first day at pro wrestling training. I came up with the gimmick name of Irish luchador Billy McNeil. So I did kind of like a leprechaun type gimmick. I had my hair bright orange and just wore all, green and stuff like that, and just basically dressed like a leprechaun. But I did that for a few years. I had like a gigantic oversized leprechaun hat that I wore. But I did that for quite a while, actually. And then eventually I was just, I don't know, I guess I was getting kind of tired of it. I felt like it kind of run its course, and I just tried to find something new. And I just started doing less and less of the, Irish imagery stuff. And that's when I stumbled across the horse mask thing and just took that and ran with it.
Well, I always like to ask you guys, did you know that you are created in a computer simulation style video game? So there's a video game. There's a video game called Total Extreme Warfare, and it's a free online game. Well, somebody has taken the time to actually create you as a wrestler in that game, amongst like about 5,000 other wrestlers. But I found it interesting that you were actually a character in that game, and they have stats for you and all that, and you can select you and book you to wrestle and all those types of things. Yep. And
I was completely unaware of this.
Yeah, so that's obviously
money.
Yeah, I would say that I don't think they make any money off of it, but there's there's two games. There's Total Extreme Warfare, and there's another one that's called Extreme Warfare Revenge, and they're both by the same person, but people take and make custom files out of those, and it's literally just a booking game. You sign wrestlers and you book them and put matches together. I play it all the time, but I had the updated rosters from 2016 that they had on there, and I just happened to run across. I was like, wow, they have Billy McNeil on here. How about that? So thought it was interesting, and you'd want to know, like, yeah, that people actually were scouting you enough to put you into a little book and video game. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I had no idea. So it's just like a wrestling promotion booker simulator type thing?
Yeah, exactly. It's free. The Extreme Warfare Revenge, EWR. If you search for it on Google, you can download a free copy of it. And then from there, you can find people who have done custom roster updates for it. Yep.
Wow, that's crazy, man. I'm going to have to look into that.
Yeah, it's pretty.
It's always one of my dreams to be on a video game, regardless of what form or format. So
I was going to say, unfortunately, there's no graphics or anything with it, but it
right.
The Total Extreme Warfare costs money. That one's actually like you pay $30-$40 to download that game because it's a little more intensive. But in
Gotcha.
in that one, you actually put the matches together and do all that. You just don't get to watch the matches; you just read about the results of them. But
Right.
but yeah, that's I always wonder if you guys knew you're on a lot of those games. And I told Gary J that he thought it was one of the coolest things he'd ever heard, that people actually put him in a video game. So, but
yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, Gary J, good friend of mine. That guy's awesome.
Yep, very awesome dude too. But
Hey, I got a quick question. Sorry,
no, you're good. Go ahead.
I was gonna ask the one man circus nickname. Where did that come from?
It just basically came from me sitting around trying to think of a cool nickname, and I had a few other ones. I'm trying to remember what they were right now. Like Human Cartoon, I think was one of them. Human Action Figure, and then came up with the One Man Circus one. I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and I forget about it most of the time. So there's only a couple of places where I've ever actually been called that, but I was using it as part of an angle we were doing in Pro Wrestling Epic before they kind of stopped running shows, where me and Clown Man Jacko were going to form a team together. We were going to be called the Balloon Animals. But he's a giant dude who dresses like a clown. Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of where that was going.
His heel turn's been terrifying, by the way. Because clowns, are kind of creepy. So when he's playing like the okay good clown, that's one thing. But man, now that last time I saw him, he was working heel, and clowns freaked me out anyway. So I was like, good job, Jacko. But
yeah, definitely. He's an intimidating dude.
Yeah, he's a big guy anyway. So
Yep.
But all right. So I guess a couple other things I want to cover. Being around this long, you've got to have some really good stories. I know, obviously, road stories and stuff, goes the road, stays in the road, but do you have any either really funny, really entertaining locker room stories, or maybe something that happened in the ring, just some kind of circumstances or anything like that?
All right. Yeah, pretty much my go-to in the situation is the time I got the crap kicked out of me by a little person.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, it was there was this show. It was out in what was it? Leavenworth, Kansas. That's where it was. But it was a kind of a smaller scale indie promotion, and they had a battle royal on the show, which everybody who was on the show was in, which included the little people. And so they're in there, just same as us. And me and my buddy Jack Adonis, who I was working that night, we're just kind of messing around in there. And he went to give me a groin shot. And instead of doing the pulled groin shot where you don't actually punch someone in the nuts, he actually just uppercutted me right in the nuts.
Oh.
So I hit the ground. I wasn't selling. It was for real. That hurt like a. But so next thing I know, there's a little person on top of me just pummeling me in the face. I don't know what I did to this dude, but he was out there with a vengeance, and he's just on top of me, punching me in the face, and I just got hit in the nuts. I'm not doing anything. So I just start yelling, Jack, help. So my buddy Jack sees this. He runs over and he boots this dude in the head, like for real. And he just went flying through the air like he was a football that just got punted. And
he punted Baxter.
So
pretty much, yeah.
So this guy was shooting on you?
I guess. I mean, if that's his way of working, I'd hate to see what he'd be like in a shoot, because he was he was throwing live rounds on me. Again, I don't know what I did to this dude. I don't even remember like interacting with him at all before.
That's exactly what happened. He was trying to get your attention. You didn't see him.
Well, it worked.
Well, I would say he had little man syndrome, but I don't know if you're allowed to say that about little people. So
I don't know. I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible with all that.
All right. So any that is a really good one. And anything else that you had, any kind of ribs or anything like that maybe you were involved in? I always like to hear about those.
Let's see. I remember back in when we were working in Gateway Championship Wrestling. That's pretty much where I started in the St. Louis area. It was a pretty prominent promotion here in the early 2000s. That's where Delirious, Matt Sydal, and Mischief and Daisy Hayes came from, for some people you might have heard of. But I remember them I don't know. I don't even remember exactly who it was. There might have been this dude, Ryan Ash, who was kind of part of our crew at the time, but he would constantly like lock people's bags up with like, 15-foot long chains with padlocks, and just whenever they're out in the ring, just padlock their bag shut, or take one of those giant rolls of what do you call that stuff, like saran wrap, like the industrial size ones, and just wrap up a bag with a half a roll of one of those to where you couldn't cut through it with a knife. I mean, it was nothing like spectacular, but it was
still
fun.
I think those things are good, and I think like a little bit of like ribbing like along those lines is just, I never thought there's anything wrong with it. I know I look back at some things, and at the time, like I might have been pissed for 5 or 6 minutes. Like if somebody plays trick on me, I'm usually kind of pissed about it for 5 or 6 minutes, but then I can look back at it and say, man, it's still gonna be a really good story like down the road. So yeah, I always find those things interesting, because in some ways, that's the kind of a part of practical jokes. It kind of carries over to some of the time I've spent in the military as well. The same kind of thing happens sometimes, but so all right, well, great stuff. Before we go any further, do you want to go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you, how they can follow you, how they can check out some of your stuff?
All right, yeah. I'm on Facebook. You can look up Billy McNeil or Billy McNeil Pro Wrestler. It's my fan page. Either one of those is perfectly okay for any way to get a hold of me, or see what I have to say about things, or places I might be wrestling soon, that sort of thing. And then on YouTube, I got, handful of matches up there. Nothing I put up, but different things that other promotions have put up. Just look up Billy McNeil Wrestler on there. If you look up just Billy McNeil, you're going to get a lot of soccer or football highlights, depending on what part of the world
the wrestler. Yeah.
But yeah, just that's pretty much the extent of my internet presence. I don't have Twitter or Instagram or any of that stuff because I don't understand it, and it frightens me.
Well, your what would you say the most, I guess, famous wrestler that you've ever been in the ring with, and then also like maybe what's one of your favorite matches, and just explain us why you liked it so much.
All right. Well, the most famous wrestler I've ever been in the ring with is No Contest Terry Funk.
Ah, wow.
That was actually very early on in my career, if you can call it that.
What was that like, working with Terry Funk?
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah, basically what it was I was this was a show that was put on in Marquette, Michigan, which is, as I said, where I trained starting out, and it was a show that there's a guy who brought in a bunch of like old WWF guys, and he brought in like filled out the show with students from Bash and Booger School. So that's how I got a part of it. But basically what happened was they wanted to do a thing where they were going to award me as Rookie of the Year of this promotion that had run 2 shows ever. And so they put me in the ring. This was around the time where Terry Funk was commissioner of WCW. And they were playing an angle like he thought he was commissioner of all of pro wrestling. So they had me come to the ring and basically accept my award for Rookie of the Year. Terry Funk comes out and interrupts it. I go to tell him, like, with all due respect, sir, I won the award fair and square. And then basically what happened was, from that point on, left hand straight to the face. I go down. He starts putting the boots to me, gets me up, gives me a pile driver, neck breaker, whatever it was. And then Bruce Hart runs out for the save on that one. So that was one of the weirdest and coolest things I've ever been a part of.
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Yeah, I kind of wish it had happened later on so I'd have a little bit more appreciation for just how great it was. I was so nervous at the time. I was like 5 matches in. I was a nervous wreck that day, but it was one of the coolest things that's ever happened in my entire life.
Wow, yeah. So as far as like maybe what you'd consider like an epic match, or just one of your better matches you've ever had, what was that, and why would you say you enjoyed it so much?
I'd say probably my best match was with the aforementioned Jack Adonis, who was one of my training partners here for a very long time. We got on a show out in Peoria. Well, basically, it was another one of those things. It was kind of a similar story to the first one, but it was a lot of the guys who were in ECW, which had just closed down at the time, and they were part of a tour called WrestleZone. So it was like Tommy Dreamer and Kid Cash, Nova, and Public Enemy, and Balls Mahoney, a whole bunch of guys like that on the show. And then, again, local indie guys, well, they were renting the ring from us, so that's kind of how we got into that. They put a few of us on the show, but anywho, Jack and I had worked a ton of matches together, so they figured, put those two together. They know each other. They'll work all right together. But I think what made it one of my favorites anyway was the fact that we had done so many matches together, but of all of them, I think everything clicked more in that match than it has anywhere else. There's just a couple of things that happened that we couldn't have planned if we tried for a million years. It's just things work out great sometimes without any real reason to it. And also it was in front of probably the biggest crowd we've ever worked in front of. There was, I don't know, at least a couple thousand people there that day. So it was cool to do that in front of that many people and not, screw up in front of that many people and get laughed out of the place. But they seemed to really like what we were doing. And it's one of the best memories I have in wrestling.
That's just amazing. I think anytime, you can just carry through memory like that. Thanks for sharing it with us, because I know we always love to hear about your guys' stories and your past and all that kind of stuff. But what we're going to do now, Billy, I know you're on here for the long haul with us, so we want to thank you, first of all, for allowing us to interview and then also joining us on the show. But we don't just want your opinions in this interview. We're going to have some riveting topics here tonight as well that we really want to hear your side on these things that we're going to be talking about. So, again, thanks for joining us. But we have one other person who's here with us now. He's fresh from the softball fields in Alaska. Haukster, the man of 1,004 nicknames, has finally made it onto the podcast. I see you've survived and made it here safely.
Yes, I did survive. I apologize for being late, but I had to go knock some balls around, so to speak.
Did you hit the cycle?
No, the washing machine was just fine, but yeah, we won both games. But you know what? The past is the past. I'm ready to look forward. Let's talk about wrestling.
All right then, guys. What I want to cover first and foremost is kind of want to talk a little bit about Brock Lesnar. Obviously, he had a big win in the UFC last weekend. A couple things about him. Billy, since you're our guest, we're going to kind of let you start out with your thoughts and opinions. But the first thing we kind of want to talk about is both Brock Lesnar and the Dudley Boys kind of weighed in on their thoughts a little bit about the Dallas shootings and everything else that's sort of been going on in the world. Do you think that more wrestlers in the WWE should weigh in on the topic, or do you kind of think maybe it's safer, or just that they kind of stay out of what's going on in the world?
I mean, they're a person just like anyone else. I mean, regardless of their fame or stature or anything like that, they're going to have opinions just like anybody. And being in the limelights that they are, they're going to have a little bit more visibility. So I think if they think they can do some good and get some information out there, or maybe show somebody a side of something that they don't know, or give an opinion that kind of helps somebody understand things, I'm all for it. I think they should speak their opinion, and if they feel like they can make a difference by doing it, I'm all for it.
What do you think, maybe, because obviously they were the two big names that really came out and said anything. What do you think sort of prevents other people from commenting? I mean, obviously, comments from someone like a Brock Lesnar, or, obviously we heard his comments, but someone like a John Cena, or like someone else that's, obviously in the front part of that company, we just, we don't hear a lot of comments from them regarding these types of things. Why do you think that is? Do you think that we don't hear a lot from them?
I think it's probably got a lot to do with them being in fear of judgment, either from the public or from the company that they represent. I mean, you look at Brock Lesnar, you look at the Dudley Boys, they're generally looked at as being opinionated and fairly outspoken, and they don't seem to have as much fear of consequences when it comes to stuff like that. But I think a lot of the guys are probably just, I mean, I've never been in that position. I can't speak for them, but
Sure.
I would assume it all comes down to fear of judgment or repercussions.
Okay. Cedric, what do you think about their comments, and do you think more wrestlers should come out with their opinions?
It caught me by surprise. I'm not gonna lie to you. I know Brock Lesnar has always been a really big fan of the military and the police force and whatnot, but it really caught me off guard when he actually said something. That was, I guess, ballsy at the moment, because we all know that for a lot of folks, it's not so much of being pro or defending the police, but more the victim side of it. So I think it was really ballsy when he did that. And definitely, the Dudley boys being both, the white Caucasian, being represented by Bubba, and then the African American by Devon, that was pretty cool, the picture they posted. So I think it was really, I appreciate it. It was very interesting. Do I think more should do so? I would say why not. I think I agree with Billy. Everybody has their own opinion, but I also agree with him in the sense that there might be a few of them that are afraid of the individual repercussion that might happen if they say something. Obviously we know that regardless of what one might think or what opinion one might have, there's always going to be folks that are not going to agree with you. So if you post something on Twitter that might bring too much attention to these Twitter wars, or if you say something on TV or something like that, you never know the reaction that the folks might have towards it. So I'm pretty sure that's not something that, WWE leadership might want to tackle unless they themselves are the ones that initiate the actual, movement or opinions and whatnot. Because we have seen them in the past, support different topics, or not so much topics, but different events that have happened. The Orlando shooting, stuff like that. But this last event or last incident that happened, it's a very touchy subject. All you have to do is just turn on the TV, watch the news, turn on, log into news sites, Facebook, whatever, and you can see it's a very, very touchy subject. So I would think, it being so a sensitive topic that some of the rest might want to just stay away from it, or even the company as a whole, just to avoid any backlash, regardless of what their opinion might be.
Sure. Hawkster, what do you think?
Well, as your average red-blooded, blue-collar, good old-hearted American, I'm going to support any man's right to his freedom of speech, First Amendment, I tell you what. But no, seriously, praise to these guys for speaking their mind and not being afraid to. I thought it was awesome. Watching the UFC fight at the bar, just about everybody in there stood up and clapped after Brock Lesnar's comments. Whether you agree or disagree, I thought it was very cool. Same with the Dudley's picture. I thought it was very cool that they went out of their way. And, typically just looking at pro wrestling in general, some of the best storylines in pro wrestling come from real events, current events, or just what's going on in the real world. So as far as a storyline, I don't think that it should be used as like a kayfabe storyline for the actual show. But as far as letting someone speak their mind, I think it's great. And I understand, some of the lower card guys, or some of the guys who aren't making millions of dollars in merchandise. I can understand some possible fears of repercussions if they come out and say something that the company itself isn't supporting, or if they try to say something on behalf of the company. I can understand repercussions for that. But as an individual, saying your individual beliefs, hey, there ain't nothing more American than that.
Well, America. Well, staying on the...
Even though Brock Lesnar did move to Canada.
Yeah.
And in the pre-fight, they asked him, why are you fighting out of Canada? Well, it's easy. I live there. Like, is it a political thing? Like, no, I just live there.
Yeah. I was keeping contact with watching those fights. So like, since when was Brock Lesnar Canadian? But, for all those who didn't know, he grew up in South Dakota anyway. You might as well be in Canada. It's up in my neck of the woods. So, but, alright, staying on, talking about Brock Lesnar, Billy, he had that win at UFC 200. I know I've said this many times on this podcast. I don't ever think they should book Brock Lesnar to lose a match. I personally am one of those guys who thinks he's so strong as a character right now, so strong as a performer. Like the last match he loses maybe is maybe his last match. But what do you think on thoughts of future booking plans? If you were in charge, what are you looking to do with him and Randy Orton here coming up at SummerSlam?
Well, what I would do there is have Brock Lesnar absolutely demolish him and anyone else they put in his path. He's got the most legitimacy of any guy on the roster. And it's crazy because he's got such a tough guy persona in wrestling and as well in real life. I think he comes off just like, even take the UFC stuff out of it, he still comes off like a legitimate badass monster who could destroy anybody that you put in front of him. So I think that's exactly how you should treat him. And yeah, I would book him to win everything forever.
Oh, interesting. Cedric? I knew I liked this guy, by the way. Totally agree. So, Cedric, what are your thoughts?
It's difficult because, you have a guy that legitimately won a UFC fight, which, by the way, before we started the podcast, there was an article running around that possible flag by the anti-doping agency that you say that. So let's hope that nothing comes out of that. But that's an article that's running wild right now. But keeping in topic, the guy does the legitimate MMA. He has his credentials before he came into the world of sports entertainment. Obviously, a big renowned collegiate wrestling star. So at this point in his career, after everything he's done and the storylines within the sports entertainment world or the actual fighting world, it's hard to see him lose. And like I agree with you. For him to lose would have to be able to put somebody over, someone that really the company thinks this is our guy from this point on, or just because he's about to call it quits. He's done with wrestling as a sports entertainment speaking. From against Randy Orton, darn, the thing is, like, what role would Randy Orton play once this brand split happens? He's been out for quite a while. So this match out of the blue, I think his star power, Randy Orton's own star power, is high enough that if he were to lose, I'm pretty sure they're going to make it competitive. I don't think it'll be a Dean Ambrose street fight where he just got thrown around from pillar to pillar and then the match ended. But when it comes to Brock, it's very difficult, definitely, because if he loses, we know it's going to be weird. But if the person he fights against has enough star power, if they lose, they can still rebound. So I agree. He should probably get a few more wins. I'm not too sure about putting a title on him and having this whole part-time champ that shows up every now and then. I, for one, I'm not a fan of that. I know some people don't.
Me neither.
Don't care about it too much. Some people think it's okay when he had the championship and you barely saw him, when The Rock had the championship and you barely saw him. Some people were okay with that, but he's at a point right now in his career that he's almost like the Undertaker. He can come 2 or 3 times and fight high-profile fights, and that's enough. That'll be enough for him, money-wise, definitely. But that'll be good for the rest that he fights.
Alex, how about you? What do you think?
I completely agree with what Cedric was saying. As far as the doping thing, and I've heard the whole spiel about, well, the fight, the contract was signed less than 4 months away from the actual fight. It was only a few weeks, and UFC has that 4-month out test. Well, I mean, Brock Lesnar is still under contract with WWE, so is he not still subject to the WWE wellness policy, which over the last at least 5 years has proven to be a lot more reputable than the UFC testing? And that's why GSP retired from UFC. So I just want to throw that out there to some of the naysayers about Brock Lesnar's status, and that's just my 2 cents on that. But as far as booking, and again, talking about pro wrestling, I agree. I don't see how you can book Brock Lesnar to lose. He's got the most legitimate strength, in-ring persona, and just the guy's the beast incarnate. That's his gimmick, and that's that's what he lives, real life and kayfabe. And in kind of the era that we're entering right now with pro wrestling, there's really only two ways you can go. And I guess we're going to talk about this later on in some of our next subjects. Mm-hmm. But you can either drift and try to legitimize and try to make things even more and more and more real looking, or you can go the exact opposite and go just super over the top crazy fantasy. And with Brock Lesnar, you can't do the crazy fantasy. You have to make it legitimate. And legitimately, I don't think there's a guy in WWE that can take him right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you had to have a legitimate shoot, yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, there's guys with striking training, like I know Rusev legitimately trained like with some martial arts, and a couple other guys. I mean, I think a lot of wrestlers nowadays have some form of martial arts training. But one thing I want to touch on is Cedric. I definitely agree with you as far as putting a title on Brock Lesnar. I don't think that that's a good idea. I think Vince McMahon described it the best when he talks about Brock Lesnar as being an attraction. He's one of those guys that when you see him 3-4 times a year, you're really excited, you're really happy to watch him, but at the same time, like, you expect him to come out there and dominate, who he's going up against. So, like, that moment he loses, I think his next match is going to almost be an Undertaker moment, like when Undertaker lost at WrestleMania. I think it'll be that type of moment when he loses. So, just my opinion. Any other takeaways about Brock Lesnar before we move on?
I just want to say I think it would be awesome to see a rematch between Undertaker and Brock Lesnar if Undertaker can handle it.
Another one?
I think that'd be neat. Undertaker trying to reclaim the loss. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
if he'd be up to it.
I just think they had 3 matches last year alone, and honestly, Brock Lesnar won all 3 of those matches. It was that fluky.
Well, I'm not saying this year. I'm saying maybe the Undertaker's very last match, or maybe Brock Lesnar's last match.
Yeah.
Maybe a year or 3 down the road.
Yeah, you guys know what I'm looking forward to, and that's Bill Goldberg, Brock Lesnar 2. God, what a terrible match. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, do you really think they could top the first one? Come on.
Yeah. Oh man, even my kids couldn't watch that, and they love wrestling. But all right, so. We've talked about Brock Lesnar for a while now. I want to switch gears a little bit. So, read an article, again, by our friends over at tgrwrestling.net that basically talked about Final Deletion and how it may be an inspiration for the WWE. We saw WWE sort of, I don't know if it was in response to, but it was eerily similar in some ways to TNA's Final Deletion, and that was with the Wyatt Compound attack with the Wyatts and New Day. So my question to you, I guess, Billy, we'll let you start out again, is first of all, what are your thoughts on the Final Deletion as well as the segment that they had with the Wyatts and New Day? And then next, creative licensing. Do you think that it's okay for WWE to take some of these things like the International 16-man tournament, taking kind of an homage to the Final Deletion type things? Do you like that? Do you not like that? Your thoughts?
Gotcha. Well, when it comes to the Final Deletion, I absolutely loved it. I thought everything building up to it and the match itself, I thought it was great. I like anything that tries to take a very tried and true format and make something unique out of it, which they absolutely did. I know a lot of people didn't like the tone of it to where it almost seemed jokey and over the top, but they were taking it completely seriously. But I mean, I don't know their intentions with it, but whatever it was, I thought it was very entertaining. I loved it. And as far as the Wyatt's New Day thing, I mean, who knows if that was inspired by that, but it's, if you're going to do something like that, why do it right after they just did the Final Deletion? I mean, it's going to draw comparison. Even if that wasn't your intention, that's what people are going to think about it. So, and if you're WWE, I'm sure the last thing you want to invite is comparisons to TNA or people saying that you ripped them off by doing the same thing. So, I mean, I can't say for sure that they did that in response to the final deletion, but at the same time, all signs point to, yeah, they did.
Did you enjoy the Wyatt segment?
It would kind of going back to what I say. It was fairly entertaining, but at the same time, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm just thinking they're just trying to do what the Hardys did. Like, even if that wasn't their intention, that's fresh in people's minds, and that's going to draw that kind of comparison. As far as the you're talking about the 16-man tag elimination thing they did on 4th of July, right?
Yeah, and then now they have this cruiserweight, the cruiserweight championship series tournament that they're doing. So it seems like they're picking up, and obviously Japan does a lot of tournaments, that type of stuff too. So is this WWE just trying to kind of fit into the fold with some of these other companies, or do you think it's, do you think it's good or bad what they're putting on right now with the Cruiserweight Classic and sort of the way it looks for some of these other companies that have been doing tournaments for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, I think I find less of a comparison as far as that goes, because I mean, tournaments in wrestling have been around forever. Like, I mean, WrestleMania 4 was a giant tournament, so I mean, they've got precedent for that. I don't know that was necessarily in response to anything. I mean, there's been indie tournaments forever. You got the Ted Petty Invitational, the Super 8, all kinds of stuff like that. Those have been around forever. So I think that was just their way of trying to figure out, well, hey, we got, there's a ridiculous amount of really talented cruiserweights all over the world now. How do we put them on our show and use them in such a way that would highlight their best attributes? And I think the tournament is absolutely the way to go with that. And just based on the first episode, I absolutely loved it. I looking forward to the next shows, the next rounds. I think it's going to be great. I'm very entertained by it.
Awesome. Well, speaking of the tournament real quick, I just want to take a second and shout out to Middle Kingdom Wrestling as well. We had one of their promoters on the show not too long ago, and just congratulations to you guys and with having your star Ho Ho Loon on there as well. So, Cedric, what were your thoughts with Final Deletion? I mean, we kind of talked about it last episode, but how do you feel about this Wyatt New Day thing? And did you draw a comparison when you watched it to what happened with Final Deletion?
Yeah, there's so much I wanted to say. Just listening to Billy, there's so many more things came to mind. Just reading the article, for example, it was funny because the guy was talking about what how Stanley mentioned about the whole real or fantasy. But let me rattle my brain a little bit because I have like 10,000 thoughts running around. All right, let me start with a question first of all. Yes, it's kind of difficult, like Billy says, kind of difficult to not have comparisons when almost a week after Final Deletion, the whole Wyatt New Day compound match or fight or whatever you want to call it happened. Same thing with the U.S. versus the Internationals. Sean from Wrestling to the Max, he had posted on the W2M Facebook page that it was weird to see that a week before CMLL had just done something similar, which was the local Mexican fighters versus all the outside fighters 16-man tournament, Rumble style elimination match. So, and this is not the first time that something that has happened a week or two prior in a different company, WWE runs something similar. The thing is, I'm pretty sure that the hardcore WWE fan probably never saw it from the other companies. So for them, it might be new, but for anybody who's actually paying attention to more than one company, they probably noticed it immediately. So it's kind of hard for one not to see the comparisons. It's kind of, I guess, I don't know if this is the right way to say, but a compliment to the other company if WWE thinks that idea was good enough that they're going to copy it and run with it and pretty much hope that, hey, nobody noticed it or that they can do something different with the same idea. So I don't know. It is what it is. There's only so many ideas that one can have at one point, especially when you've been around as long as they have. So I liked more Final Deletion, to be honest with you. I watched the director's cut. I watched the signing. I have weeks and weeks of TNA DVR for me to watch. I'm quite a few months behind. I can't wait to catch up, but I did watch these on YouTube. I thought it was hilarious. I could not stop laughing. I thought it was great. Some people have been very negative to it. I thought it was great. It was something different. Again, how Stanley touched upon it, and it happened that a few weeks ago, Stone Cold touched upon it in his podcast, and he said, look, the WWE is so afraid of going left or right that's why they need either go super real and not mind who you offend, or go super fantasy, but you got to do something to spice up the current product, not just the brand split, but actually what are you going to do after the brand split? And this is, hopefully, they saw not so much. I wouldn't say that they see TNA as a rival or something to be afraid of. Maybe like in the days of WCW versus WWE, but hopefully they notice that fans are starting to notice these other companies. Because when I was watching the Final Deletion with my wife immediately compared it to Lucha Underground. Yep. And I remember people at first, Lucha Underground, they were like, that's not gonna do anything. Well, people can wait till season 3 now, so it's also picking up. And going back to what Billy was saying about the Cruiserweight Classic, you know, there is a similar comparison, because even Brian Kendrick mentioned it, that he said, you know, it was about time that the WWE adopted something like similar to the Super J Cup, I think is what it's called in New Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And even Triple H said, you know, he didn't say it as, let me give credit where credit's due to these companies, but he did mention, you know, it's time for the WWE to start adapting or not adopting kind of certain things that wrestling fans like, aka from other companies. So, but the difference about WWE is it gives a platform for these guys that might have never been, they're known across the world, but not in the US. It gives them a platform to finally be known in what is considered the biggest stage in sports entertainment when it comes to the US. So it's fine as long as you give credit where credit is due, and you realize that, you know, the WWE has the money and the power to probably elevate this to a whole different stratosphere, especially within the US.
Okay. Hawkster, your thoughts?
Well, I can see where y'all are coming from as far as the comparisons between Deletion and the Wyatt Compound segments. For me, yeah, I can see where you're coming from as far as like just the middle of nowhere, open field, kind of crazy filters and weird camera angles. But to me, they were very, very different. For me, Final Deletion was pretty much, it was the entire event. It was the culmination of the story, and it basically was an entire episode. It was the beginning, middle, end. It was the whole shebang, if you will. WWE always says we don't make matches, we make movies. Well, that's basically what Final Deletion was. It was a movie. For the Wyatt Compound, to me, that seemed more like just a backstage segment. Just instead of backstage, it was out in the middle of the field. It didn't feel like a culmination or a big ending. It just felt like another chapter to a saga that's continuing to build up. So there's my take on it. As far as the influence, yeah, you can definitely tell a little bit of influences coming from it, just with, again, the way they filmed it. I felt like the Wyatt Compound was a much more serious tone rather than Final Deletion, which had just about every tone that there was. You know, it was very, very serious as far as just the battle between them two. But it was also really over the top cornball, which made it to me even more entertaining because it really made you suspend your disbelief, you know, and it just engrossed you into what was going on. Whether you were a fan of pro wrestling or not, like you would have enjoyed this. It was basically a combination of pro wrestling, Sharknado, and Call of Duty Black Ops 3, just with really, really bad graphics. I mean, you had drones and you had a hologram of Matt Hardy. It was so just over the top crazy, but it was good and it was entertaining. And all the build up before then from TNA Impact episodes, it made you look forward to this. So like it was really awesome, but it was it was like the full event. It was the culmination of the story. It was the pay-per-view ending, so to speak, rather than the Wyatt Compound again. To me, it just felt like another chapter in the saga, another backstage segment that is meant to lead to something bigger later on. Now, whether they do a full, outdoor battlefield like they did here, I think people would pay money to see it still. I mean, imitation is the best form of flattery, right?
That's what they say. I'm still not sure what I watched when I watched Final Deletion. I've watched it probably a good 5 times now, and it's kind of like what is it that you look for in pro wrestling, And so we had this discussion not long ago with the whole Ricochet Will Ospreay thing. At the end of the day, you look back at it and you go, man, was that wrestling that I just watched, or was it something different? This kind of gave me that same feeling. Like, was this wrestling or was it something different? And to me, it was definitely touched more on the entertainment side. I mean, it might be the first ever massive Roman candle fight in a wrestling promotion. Might be the first.
Yeah, that to me was just so weird. What are you doing?
Might be the first hologram that we've seen in pro wrestling. No,
Hell in a Cell, Bray Wyatt. He got that first.
Yep.
Oh, really? I don't remember that. So
Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, and Bray Wyatt came in, interrupted at the very end to take out Dean Ambrose. There was a hologram of Bray Wyatt at first, and then he jumped through the hologram. But that was about 2 years ago now. So.
See.
So boom, TNA copied WWE.
Yep.
Boom, there you go. Wyatt did it first.
Yeah,
there you go.
At least they wait a little bit.
Circle.
Yeah, it's come full circle. How you doing? Anyway, so all right. And anything else you guys want to talk about concerning Final Deletion? Like I said, we touched on a little bit last week, but overall, I still enjoyed it. It was just something you look back at and you go, wow, that was weird and different, and I don't know if I was ready for that yet. I think maybe it's a couple years ahead of its time still.
I think, bar none, what separates the Final Deletion from anything else I've seen in a pro wrestling event, Senor Benjamin.
the baby with the little strap of the hair, that was funny.
I will say this: does anybody else think that Matt Hardy looks like Cruella DeVille?
Yeah.
With that hairstyle.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely
Especially with
see
the
that.
coat.
Well, he should put the coat on and just complete this for me, just so I can live this out.
Once you've seen it, you can never unsee it.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Anyway,
I just think I like how Stanley mentioned, what WWE says. We don't make, what was it, how Stanley? We don't make wrestling, we make movies.
We make movies.
Well, that's, unless he's talking about the ones that have been straight to DVD or some of these in the movie theater, that's been missing in some of the products for quite a while. So this was a little bit over the top, but it was like back in the day when you used to see these storylines that you were like, where the heck did this storyline come from? But I'm excited to find out where it's going.
Yeah, like
so it was different, that's for sure. But even the wrestling was cool. The angles, everything that they did, it was good. I think it's what sports entertainment is. If you're gonna call it sports entertainment with a touch of wrestling, then definitely that's what it is. And Lucha Underground has definitely found a formula to make it work, and it was nice to see them. And I'm actually happy that whether it was copied or not, I was actually happy to see WWE do something different with the Wyatts and the New Day. That too was a good angle as well. So
I got a question for Billy here, since he's really the only one here with in-ring experience. How do you feel about the matches with no live audience? Like, does that kind of play a factor into the I guess the entertainment value or the making it real kind of thing for someone watching it?
I've never personally worked a match in front of no audience, but I guess it really depends on what you're going for with it. I mean, when it comes to something like Final Deletion, they clearly did not need people present at the event while it was going on. It came off great how it was, but I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, the AWA had something called the Team Challenge series in the dying days of that promotion, where they would work in basically an empty studio, and the matches just, they didn't feel the same because it had no atmosphere to it. It was just cold, heatless wrestling, and it was, I don't know, it lost something not having a crowd there. So I think either way, it depends on what you're going for. If you're going for a spectacle like Final Deletion, yeah, you don't need an audience for that. If you're just putting on straight wrestling matches, the crowd absolutely helps create some of that atmosphere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think on the other end of that, you had the halftime heat match that The Rock and Mankind had in the empty arena during the halftime of the Super Bowl. And that was very entertaining because obviously they fought all over the building, you know.
Right.
So yeah, if it's just straight up gonna stay in the ring, yeah, I couldn't imagine without a crowd to feed off of. And then as a performer, I couldn't imagine what that'd be like too, because a lot of what you guys do, you kind of have to feel it out with the crowd too, right? And what they're digging and what they're not.
Oh, absolutely, and that would be part of the difficulty in working in front of no crowd. It's hard to get that the feeling you get when you're in the ring and you're performing and people are reacting. It gets you pumped up, and I mean it makes things a lot easier to do. It makes it a lot easier to figure out what you're doing, where you're going. The crowd definitely plays a part in putting together a good match.
All right, well, awesome. Well, at the end of the day, I think we're going to remember Final Deletion. I will remember it as my second favorite TNA segment I've ever seen. First still being Black Machismo, Jay Lethal when his Ric Flair impressions when they had the Ric Flair off the one night on TNA. But I'll remember both of those, and I look forward to continuing to watch those as I introduce people to weird angles in wrestling. So, good stuff.
Definitely.
So, all right, you guys, we hit that point of the show, kind of that halfway mark where we kind of want to maybe throw a shout out or maybe a rant for you guys this week. Cedric, do you have any praises, any rants you want to throw out there this week? Anything bothering you?
Yeah, just a quick shout out and praise to the WWE. Definitely awesome bracketology. Couldn't have picked a better duo to comment. It was amazing to see the warmth, the passion from the American Dragon, Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, as known in WWE. Mauro Ranallo, since the first day I heard him comment, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, K1. I think he's amazing. So great pick to host. Awesome show. Can't wait to see what else is going to happen. Happy to hear that it's not going to be a one and done thing. Even though Triple H has no idea what's going to come next, pretty sure he and Vince will get together and figure out a few things. And definitely, good on TNA and Lucha Underground and all these new companies and Ring of Honor. New Japan is doing their own thing, starting to build their companies. Some of them already built like New Japan, but getting the U.S. crowd to get to know them and kind of push the WWE to maybe start looking into doing newer things that will spice up the company. That's what it is all about, is having different flavors and being able to pick and choose what you like.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. I also enjoyed the episode. Obviously, I thought it was pretty amazing that first week they did. But to me, the bracketology episodes, like all that leading up into it, were just so fantastically done. So yeah, good on them for that. Alexter, anything you want to praise or get off your chest?
Yeah, I'm just gonna jump right in here as well for the Cruiserweight Classic and say some praise. Again, apologize for the spoiler if you have not watched episode 1. But that main event match between Ibushi and Maluta, that was pretty amazing match. I dare to say that for someone who has never seen Maluta wrestle, that to me was almost an instant classic. Another member of the Anoa'i family, and the guy can go, man. He for a moment there, I really thought he may have actually pulled an upset on Ibushi. So there was just a very great match put together. by two people who not a lot of people in America have actually seen, unless you're, a true wrestling purist kind of fan. So I'm glad that these guys are finally getting some good exposure, and I can't wait to see more of this tournament. It's been excellent so far, and having Brian and Mauro Ronaldo on commentary has just been great because they bring something just so unique to the table. Both are not necessarily color guys; they're more in-depth play-by-play. Mauro with his just great sports background as far as calling everything, and Brian with his history with a lot of the wrestlers in this tournament and going through what they're going through right now. It just really makes the whole thing feel special. Oh, kudos.
Yeah, let's not forget Corey Graves backstage too. You basically got like your three best, in my opinion, three of the best guys that they could have picked for this particular event. So, yeah, awesome job.
Oh yeah. If they added Corey Graves to do a 3-man, I don't know how exactly he would go over because he is more of a color guy. But yeah, those three are pretty excellent. I think I'd rather him be the host of the show, like the pre and post.
Yeah,
I think I'd prefer that.
Now this 3-man, we're still talking wrestling, right?
No, we're talking commentary.
Well, that's what
those two guys are retired from in-ring action.
Well, no, that's what I meant. You said you were gonna have a 3-man, and I was just making sure we're still on the wrestling topic. But all right, so
all right.
Praise and rant of the week. Well, we talked a minute ago about WWE making movies, right? So my rant is, why are they so mad about Hulk Hogan making a movie about about himself? No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna go down that road tonight. Anyway. No, I
delete.
Brother, I knew you.
Oh man, I mean, like any other American, I had to watch it, but it is what it is. So you've got sorry, it just struck me funny a while ago when you were talking about making movies, and I was like, oh, I got to talk about this Hulk Hogan thing. But anyway, so for me, I also kind of wanted to just carry some praise over from CWC, and then I want to talk just a slight rant about something else. But you guys pretty much covered all my points. Great stuff they had with their first episode of the Cruiserweight Classic. But on the negative side, I don't know whether to be disappointed or happy about the way WWE has kind of in their treatment of Roman Reigns after this failure of substance abuse. It's kind of shocking to me that they would come out each week and they're having Seth Rollins just really lay everything out on Roman every week, and just really running him into the ground. It seems weird for Roman, both as like a person and as a character, I guess. And I don't know how I feel about it. At the same time, anytime they sort of start involving kind of insider stuff into it, I sort of appreciate that as far as their ability to just kind of put that out there for the fans. And I know, like, for my kids, having to explain to my son, like, this is what happened with Roman Reigns, this is why he's on TV, and he still doesn't understand why he still gets to wrestle, and after everything that happened. But I
think we're all on that way.
How did you guys feel? How do you guys feel about what's going on with him on TV? Because I know for me, like, it's kind of cringeworthy at times. It bothers me to some degree because I'm like, damn, man, you guys are running him into the ground. And then you had the thing last week where it's the back and forth interview thing with him and Roman Reigns, and they just made it look really bad. And maybe that's what we're supposed to do for Rollins and his heel character, and just really just think it's despicable what he's doing. But and obviously he doesn't really feel that way about Roman. But what do you think about WWE like allowing this to happen?
Well, my take on it is if they're really trying to make Rollins look more like the bad guy by doing this, I really think it's backfiring, because you're getting more and more people chanting for Rollins every single week since this has happened, really since his comeback. And it really feels like there's a very organic turn happening for him, at least from fan reaction that I've noticed. Or maybe that's just so many smarks out there who are, just rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah,
but I don't personally think that's the case here.
I think there's really that many people who disliked Roman Reigns to like such a degree, it's just crazy to me. But Cedric, what about you? What do you think?
I just think if they're smart, just like you guys have mentioned before, the whole people rooting for Rollins and hating Reigns, either WWE wants to let people know, yeah, he's not our protected golden, child that people have been talking about. So we're gonna let him get this heat, and this is the way we're gonna do it, and just bring him back as a heel. Because to be honest with you, in all reality, who will want to come back to play the face? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you will be legitimately upset that the company you work for, through the guy that you hate, has been putting you down. So really, storyline wise, the right thing to do is to bring him back as a heel. I would not understand how they could continuously push him as a face. It would be mind boggling to me. But from a reality aspect, yeah, it's kind of difficult sometimes to hear. Like, I personally don't yet know exactly what he violated, like what if he took some kind of pain medication or something.
Well,
and that's what he busted for.
They said it was an amphetamine, but they didn't say exactly what kind.
So I don't know. It depends what the end result is. What's gonna make this what they've done, if it was good or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If at the end it makes sense, like all this that's making us feel uncomfortable as we're hearing it, there's a true end goal that's gonna work, then definitely you'll be like, damn, that was messed up. They used it, but I could see why they did it. But if they were to bring him back as the face, seeing people booing him, because they're gonna start. They're not only gonna boo him now; they're gonna come with comments. You're gonna see the posters. You're gonna see so many things that for him to continue to push as a face is gonna be very difficult. So let's see how it plays out. But it is kind of weird how they've made a point of continuously every week make fun of it or just rub it in your face. Like now they I think in the fake interview, Rollins called him a cheater. Talked about his heritage, how he let his family, his fans down. So he even took it even more personal when he brought in his heritage. And we all know that whole family is very, very proud of their heritage. So it's pretty difficult. But let's see what the end result's gonna be. That's what's gonna make it all either worthwhile or not.
Well, Billy, what do you think of all of this?
Honestly, I find the whole situation just kind of confusing as to what they're going for. First of all, I was amazed they brought Rollins back as a heel, especially with the comeback videos they showed for him. They presented him as a sympathetic guy who is, working to overcome his injury and make his comeback. And I thought they presented him as a babyface in that whole situation. Then to bring him back as a heel was kind of confusing. But then. Pretty much any other time they've had a guy fail a wellness test, it's just, swept under the rug. Well, not swept under the rug, but in terms of storyline, the guy's just kind of gone for a period of time. And then to bring it up and the way they're doing it, they're making Rollins look like a jerk for continuously hammering him with it. But that's where I'm kind of confused, because are they going to bring Reigns back as a face? And if they do, what kind of message does that send? This guy got busted for doing something he wasn't supposed to be doing, and now they're going to bring him back and make him the big babyface hero. I don't think that sends a good message at all. So I really am confused to see where this is going, and I really feel like Rollins should just be the face in this whole situation, and they should just let Reigns sit out his suspension without any kind of mention or anything like that, and bring him back and do whatever you're going to do with him after that. But I don't know, to bring it into storylines I don't know. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Billy, for sure. Like, it does, like, there's times I hear it and I'm just like, oh, and then like my son has to ask me, like, did Roman Reigns really say that? And I'm like, no, son, like, you can tell that this video was shot, and he's trying to explain it. It was really confusing for both my kids too, watching it. And so then it's just the way that they put it together. I think it's caused more confusion for me than it has interest in the match that's coming up. So
yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, like, based on what Bailey just said, and just to make sure of all of our comments, I think what makes it weird for me is we still have this triple threat match coming up, and to me, when Rollins, even when Rollins goes face to face with Dean Ambrose, it's almost like he's more concerned about Roman Reigns and putting him down, you know. So it's almost like I would have preferred them to have had a one-on-one match, because unless Roman is gonna win, which I doubt it, I think it would have been much better have them, Ambrose and Seth, fight. Maybe Reigns comes and disrupts the match and something, and that causes him Rollins the match or something. But it is almost weird to have the only interaction and build that Reigns has is not even physically present. It's through whatever Rollins is doing. It's kind of weird. So that's why I was wondering, like, what is this setting up? This has to be setting something up, but yet it's so weird that he's not there. So Rollins is not really focusing so much on Ambrose, but more on Rollins. So I don't know. Like I said, I would have preferred just a one-on-one match, and that's about it.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to me and giving your opinions on that one, because it was kind of bothering me when I heard Raw this week, and then in the SmackDown, some of it as well. So, all right, moving on to the next thing, we're gonna have our instant classic match of the week. So this to me is the best wrestling match I've ever seen. I think after I broke it all down, I decided, okay, yes, this is the one I would pick if I had to pick my favorite match of all time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, the submission match from WrestleMania 13. It was my week to pick a match, so I'm going to let you guys break the match down first. Give me your thoughts on it. Billy, you want to run us through your thoughts of this particular match?
Yeah, actually just watched this about a month ago, but I remember watching it live as it happened on pay-per-view, and there's just so much going on in that match. Like the alignment's about to change with the babyface and heel, with Austin and Bret Hart doing the double turn, and then you got Shamrock in there as a referee, and it was just such a different style of match for the time. It seemed like it was kind of, I mean, looking back on it now, especially, it looks like that kind of kickstarted the whole Attitude Era, which, I mean, as we all know, was such a huge deal in the 90s and just changed the pro wrestling business. But I think it's an excellent choice. It's an amazing match. You can go back and watch it now, and you go back and watch stuff from that period of time now, and a lot of it doesn't age that well. I think that, if anything, has gotten better, because it just tells such a great story. The fact that Austin bled in the match as much as he did, I mean, I think it really added something to it, which kind of highlights something that's missing from wrestling now. I don't think, every, big match like that needs to be a bloodbath or anything, but it definitely adds to the drama and the story they're trying to tell. And just the iconic shot of him in the sharpshooter, just screaming in pain, got the blood streaming down his face. Like, that's something that, from the second I saw it until for the rest of my life, is just etched in my brain. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, Cedric, what'd you think?
I was gonna say, Billy, if you want to see bloodbath, Carlos Colon versus Jason the Terrible. Gosh, dang.
Our match from last week.
Oh, I've seen some of those. Yeah. Oh my God, those are frightening.
I forgot to give a disclaimer before I picked that one. Anyway, hope we didn't lose listeners because of it. The few things that stood out for me from the get-go, just that was WrestleMania 13. What a huge difference from this past WrestleMania to that WrestleMania. With so over the top in the special effects, the lighting, the everything else. But yet this one, as non-spectacle as it was, the matches was the spectacle. And that to me is something that I believe is missing in wrestling. That's just my opinion. The build-up, they went through a nice little summary as to why we got to the point that we got. The commentating, it was okay, but it told a story and it kept you intrigued as to why things were happening the way they were happening. Two legends, at the time you could just tell just the contrast in style. Bret Hart, any move that Bret Hart does is excellently executed. That's so obvious with him. He's one of the people that definitely deserves that nickname. Still think that nobody hits a turnbuckle chest first harder than he does. And his post figure four leg lock that he does from the outside, that's a maneuver that's just devastating. The match itself was great moves, great hits, great spots from inside the ring, outside of the ring, and the fans. Everything was it was a great storytelling match. Ken Shamrock, gosh damn, that guy was big. Roids are good for you. But even my wife was like, why is Ken Shamrock damn? Like, I have no idea, but until the end when he pulls Bret Hart off a Stone Cold and does that pretty good slam, I'm like, I have no idea why he's there, but yeah, he was there. And definitely, what gives this match even more value is knowing that that Stone Cold and Bret Hart had talked about the whole blading. And we all know that Mr. McMahon has never been a fan of that. So that definitely also even added more to these two, the respect outside of the ring, but yet the hatred inside the ring. It was just chemistry. And it was a great match.
All right, Hulkster, what are your thoughts on this match? That good, huh?
All right, for me, yeah, I'd say this match truly is a masterpiece in all aspects of that word. The psychology being told, where you have, the squeaky clean good guy, the true naturally born athlete versus the rude, crass, just blue collar common man who's just out to, get his own. And the turnaround in this match to me really was kind of like the birth of the anti-hero, because prior to this time, I mean, almost every storyline that we got, even proceeding from movies, TV shows, you had a defined good guy and you had a defined bad guy. You really didn't have that tweener or anti-hero that we see a lot of in modern day stories and modern day movies. So to me, Stone Cold really was one of those first guys to be like that. As far as the match itself, both these guys were on their A game. Like there really wasn't a bad move in there. It was spectacular. The brawling, the technical aspects, both submissions on both sides of the fence. It was just incredible for me. And at the end, that when Bret Hart locks in the sharpshooter, you just hear the crowd just going absolutely nuts. And even McMahon on commentary yells, "Listen to this crowd! Listen to this crowd!" It's just events like that make WrestleMania the showcase of immortals, as we call it now. It was just something spectacular. And as far as a side note from the match itself, I guess just a kudos to Austin, or Austin giving himself a pat on the back. He's analyzing this match in a post commentary, just calling the match while watching it. Mm-hmm. And at the very end, he's saying, "There I am, laying in a pool of blood, and it's the best feeling in the world." Now, when you hear someone say that, you gotta think, okay, that guy's off his rocker. But I mean, in context, it just really speaks volumes to what those two men did that night.
Man, I don't even know where to start when I talk about this match. I get emotional to this day watching this match, because as a huge Bret Hart fan as a kid, this was one of those times where you actually kind of were like, "Bret, what are you doing?" At the end of this match when he continues to attack Steve Austin, and then even the brutality he showed during the match, you didn't get to see that killer instinct all the time in Bret Hart, and I always kind of feel like if we could have saw that aggressive of a Bret Hart the year before, when I don't think Shawn Michaels would have beat him. Obviously the way they booked it, but I just mean as far as where his character was at. But what I really enjoyed in this one was, I'm not a big Todd Pettengill fan, but I thought that the intro that they did, where they talked about how would you feel, if you left and you came back and everything was different, and they laid everything out as far as what Bret Hart had left and then what he came back to, and then what was going on with him and Steve Austin leading up to this match. And at the beginning, it's one of those things you just can't describe when you're watching it. Again, I also got to watch this one on live and on pay-per-view. It was one of those things to where when this match was over, I could have turned the TV off and not watched any more wrestling that night. I didn't even need to see any matches after this one was over, because I knew all I was going to be thinking about, talking about, was going to be this match afterward. So, and to this day, as a fan of wrestling for over 20 years now. In fact, 20 years. This match has almost been good for 20 years. So, but it's always have an emotional place for me, just because of how hard Steve Austin fought at the end of that, to finally, go out and then to be attacked again by Bret Hart, the first time I in my life had ever seen a double turn. So amazing match. So much stuff you could get into just from the psychology of it, but that was one thing I wanted to ask you, Billy. I guess as a wrestler, when you're watching a match like this, how differently do you see it to you as a performer versus us as fans who have never got to actually, train as wrestlers?
I think it really depends. Like, if you're talking about this match in particular,
Yeah.
If it's a match that it's just so pitch perfect in what it's doing, I can sit and watch something like that, like just as a fan, and just really enjoy what they're doing and not try to pick it apart, and just kind of sit back and let the story be told and enjoy it. With a lot of stuff, it's hard to watch and not see, the wheels turning, see where it's going, see kind of, see what the guys are going for, before it happens, and kind of get an idea of, what they had in mind, and, just little details and stuff like that that you notice after you've been wrestling for a while. But if it's a really good match, if the psychology is really on, or even if it's just something that's like a crazy high-flying spectacle, like the Ricochet and Ospreay match, like I can just sit back and turn my brain off and watch something like that as a fan, and that's pretty much how I know when I'm watching something that's really good.
Interesting, because I know, like, even me watching this again as a little kid, didn't notice any of it, and never came to mind, but like even watching it now, I've seen this match so many times that I just start paying attention to different things, and like I could see, like, there's a couple spots where you can see Steve telling Bret something, and Bret's pulling his head down and he's talking to him, and then I know there's the spot where Bret's gonna try to come down on his knee again when he's got it up on the turnbuckle, and right before he does it the last time, Stone Cold sits up, says something to him, and then he misses. And I never noticed those types of things when I was younger, and it seems like now, as I get older, I really pick those types of things out in the matches. But I almost have like a higher appreciation for it, because it's like, man, they were able to just. I never saw that stuff when I was younger, and now that I see it, I like it even more, because I'm like, wow, there he is. He's telling him, what's going on. And then even with my kids, like, I explain it to my kids. I'm like, see, look at that, buddy. Like, that's him, talking to him about this and about that. Because, I mean, my kids are totally breakdown matches, sometimes as much as I will. It's crazy for a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, to be pointing out stuff and be like, oh, Dad, look. He just told him looked like he told him to do this on the turnbuckle, or, whatever. So, but, this was one they enjoyed watching with me, and it's good to share a match with them that we were all able to enjoy, and just one of my favorite matches, like I said. So thank you guys for reviewing it, and, looking forward to, Hulkster's pick next week. So we've covered our instant classic match of the week. We got 2 fantasy bookings left, and we'll wrap up this episode. So, who do we have for fantasy booking this week, Cedric?
Alrighty, for this week, we had Legion of Doom versus Demolition, and Briscoes versus Midnight Express.
Okay, well, obviously we know LOD and Demolition happened toward the end of Demolition's run in the WWF, but we're mainly going to be focusing on basically an all-time Legion of Doom versus the best version of Demolition that we saw in WWF. We've broken these teams down already before, but what I want to do is, Billy, if you could give your thoughts on this matchup and let us know who you think would win and why.
Let's see. So we're talking both of these teams at the peak of their ability, at the peak of their runs.
Yes.
Plucked out of time and put together. Okay.
Yep. No home field advantage, nothing like that, and just a straight up tag match.
All right. See, this is a tricky one because there's two kinds of people. There's Legion of Doom Road Warriors fans, and then there's Demolition fans. There's not a lot of crossover there. Myself, I'm a huge Demolition fan. I appreciated what the Road Warriors did and what they do or did, but I always thought Demolition were better, for lack of a better term, technicians in the ring. The Road Warriors went out there and just annihilated people.
Mm-hmm.
And Demolition would, maybe not so much by the time they were on their way out, but they would really systematically pick people apart, and I really enjoyed watching them work. But I think I got to give the nod to the Road Warriors in this one. When they're at their peak and they were just out there crushing everybody, they were basically unstoppable. They were booked that way, obviously, but at the same time, I still think in a one team versus one team, 2-on-2, I still think the Road Warriors at their peak had a higher peak than Demolition did at theirs.
Okay. Cedric, what do you think from your Wrestling 101 film study?
To me, these were two of my favorite tag teams growing up. Like, who did not have a fruit punch annihilator, just have the red tongue and think that they were sticking the tongue out and pretend they were taking off the mask. You know what I mean? I know I did many times. So, yep. and definitely the Spikes, it was their outfit, their music, two of the best teams from top to bottom, I think, historically, when it comes just to the top teams anyway. Very similar, obviously, you guys know, but to me, I just got to go with I go with Legion of Doom or Road Warriors, whatever you folks want to call them, LOD. It just, from their Smash Mouth style, to me, was a little bit different from Demolition, but I think it was a bit stronger. Just the physique, their build, the way their look, and definitely that finishing movement, the Doomsday Device. How many tag teams afterwards have paid respect and homage to them by doing either the same version or version of it? So I definitely like LOD a lot.
Okay. Hawkster?
What a rush! And I can't do the music. But
that's Mickey.
Yeah.
That was Mickey's last breath.
Mickey coming back as Hawk. But anyway, continue.
Yeah. Well, I will not try to intimidate or imitate either one of their managers because I'm not that good. But yeah, I gotta give this to Animal and Hawk as well. They were just two smash mouth, strong, beat you up kind of guys. And not to say that Demolition wasn't. Axe and Smash did a lot of double axe handles and a lot of smashing themselves. But yeah, Hawk and Animal, they were animals. And same thing as kind of what Billy said. They were just a little bit better back in their prime than Demolition was in their prime, in my opinion. And the Doomsday Device, I think, really is a key factor there because they could perform that on anybody.
Wow. So we're gonna have to have a clean sweep here. I think Legion of Doom's gonna win, but here comes the Axe. Here comes the Smasher. I really wish they could have won this one because finishing move wise, I love the Doomsday Device, but I also loved Demolition's finisher with them coming off the second rope there, and the other guy having him sort of in that pendulum backbreaker style thing, and him just coming down on top.
Demolition decapitation.
The decapitation, yeah. I absolutely loved their tag finish was very good too. I think what it comes down to at the end of the day, to me, what would win it is Hawk had a different type of athleticism than any of the other three participants in this match, and I think I think he's kind of underrated for the amount of speed and athleticism that he had for a guy his size. And I think at the end of the day, he's kind of the X factor in this match. He's just that much faster. Strength-wise, they all are fairly the same, although Animal still might be the strongest guy in the match. So overall, I think Legion of Doom's just got too much for Demolition. But man, I love Demolition. In fact, I know I'm sure if you haven't heard the first episode, Demolition is my first memory of wrestling, was seeing them do an interview with Mr. Fuji and just thinking they were the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life.
These guys are just mean. Why are they doing such bad
why are they
things?
doing such bad things though, man? Because then I couldn't read. I was like, they're just so bad when I was a kid. But
It almost cost me a cavity though.
oh yeah,
Too many now laters trying to get the rest done.
trying to get the
Bazinga. That was punny and funny.
funny and funny at the same time. Nice, good work. All right, so Legion of Doom. I don't know who's gonna beat them coming down the pike here, but they'll be moving forward to the next round of our fantasy tag team tournament. So the next one that we have here is going to be them boys, the Briscoes, versus the Midnight Express. Now, this isn't a weird, interesting matchup if there ever was one. Hawkster, who do you got in this matchup?
Man, this is tough because you got the Midnight Express, not the Midnight Rockers or the Midnight Rock and Roll, the Midnight Express, who truly, I mean, they're just talking prestige. I don't know, we don't use prestige in our evaluations here, but just talking prestige. I mean, these guys were the heels of all heels back in the day. Like these guys were the guys that you love to hate, and they were the guys that beat all your favorite guys. So it's hard to see them losing a match. That being said, them Briscoe boys, man, they got everything. They've got speed, they've got agility, they've got just freak gorilla strength. I don't know if I can really see Midnight Express winning this one. Sure, they may have the experience and they may have the ring psychology to get around them, but I don't know if they can overcome just the pure athletic ability that Mark and Jay have, and especially the innovation and creative move set that they have. I just don't see any way around it. I think it's a pretty one-sided affair here.
Oh, okay, interesting. Cedric?
I'll keep it simple. There is no counter to the redneck kung fu. It's just what I think. When you're the only known black belt in redneck kung fu, that's pretty tough. That's like Van Damme type thing we're talking about here. Steven Seagal. So I'll go with
Van Damme.
I'll go with.
I don't even know what that was.
That was exactly that. Van Damme. But yeah, I'll go with the Briscoes. What I saw from the Midnight Express, man, these guys were tough, man. I was amazed some of the finishing moves. It was just brutal. Some of the things that they were doing from full Nelson to the face plant, literally face plant. There was like no gift to that. To some of their moves from the top rope. So they were definitely unique for their time. And this will not be an easy match. But I agree with Huck Stanley. The Briscoes is just innovation in that ring. Some of their moves paying homage to like Mick Foley and whatnot from Mark, Jay, just the J driver or drill or whatever the heck they calls it, or their own version of the Doomsday Device. They're just a fun tag team to watch. And even when they lose a match, you're going to get a heck of a match between them and their opponent. So I'll choose the Briscoes.
Billy, what do you think?
I'm going to go against the grain with this one. I'm picking Midnight Express. I think The Briscoes are great. I think they kind of remind me. They almost have the mold of like a Road Warrior style tag team. They're just crazy intense, and they come at you at 110 miles an hour. But Midnight Express is like the perfect example of a tag team where, as a kid, I absolutely hated them because they always found a way to win, and usually by nefarious means. But as an adult, I have come to really appreciate what they did. I think in a straight up fist fight, the Briscoes probably literally murder them. But I think somehow, some way, the Midnight Express would come out with the victory, possibly with a Jim Cornette tennis racket shot.
Yeah, I'm actually with you, Billy. I would take the Midnight Express in this. I think that the Midnight Express have underrated size, I think, for the and strength for the things that they could do. And man, from a tag team standpoint, even though the Briscoes are brothers, it's just the type of communication and the ability to be on the same page, and just when it comes to pure tag team wrestling, I don't know if there's been a better heel tag team in the history of wrestling than the Midnight Express. It would be very, very hard for me to say that the Briscoes could compete with these guys. Obviously, great match, but I'm kind of going to tie it up here. I think the Midnight Express versus the Briscoes. I would take the Midnight Express. Similar means for you, Billy. I think that Jim Cornette plays a role in this one, whereas the Briscoes won't have a manager by their side. So we are going to sit at a tie, at least at the moment, for this one.
All right.
What do you guys think?
I think we're going to have to go talk to some of our friends over at WTM Wrestling to the Max and see if we can get a tiebreaker here.
Yeah, I'm sure if we post something on the page there, they can break the tie for us. Because yeah, we'll ask them the question and let them break the tie. But
there you go.
All right, so great show, guys. Sounds great talking subjects with you guys like always. I want to thank Billy McNeil for taking a couple hours out of his Friday night and into early Saturday morning, just to sit down and talk to us wrestling nerds for a while. And always great to have an actual independent talent's perspective on the wrestling business, and to hear your comments on the stuff that's going on is just great, because it either affirms kind of our line of thinking and make sure that we're not way off base, but then it's also a unique thing to just hear it from someone who's still actively competing. So thank you very, very much for joining us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. You guys call yourselves wrestling nerds. I'm a wrestling nerd too. That's how I became a wrestler. So happy to do it. Thanks for having me. Anytime. I'd love to come back.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Yeah, we'd love to have you back. Just one more time before we get off here, I just want you to let people know how to find you so they can get to know Billy McNeil and his crazy monkey mask.
All right, yeah, it's Billy McNeil Pro Wrestler is the fan page. Billy McNeil is my personal page. If there's more than one Billy McNeil on there, it's the one that's a picture of me inside of a giant claw machine. So that's how you find me. But yeah, just go ahead, find me on there. I'll talk to you about whatever.
Awesome. All right, guys, you have anything for Billy before we get done with the show?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of your interview. I apologize deeply. But again, thank you so much, and I can't wait to go back and hear what you had to say more of.
Right on. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being with us. I know it's pretty late. Your end is almost, what time is it here? It's midnight here. I think it's probably, if you're Eastern time, it's probably 2 in the morning for you. So definitely thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for the insights, and hope to have you be part of the Jobbers Court once again, since you have already been officially deemed. We threw that fake lamb blood at you. Sorry.
Yeah. So we don't have to go through.
Hey, it's all right.
Oh, I missed the lamb.
You did. You missed
I missed the lamb. We actually had a lamb this time.
It bleeded.
Man.
And I had a little bit of chanting and poetry for him too.
Yeah, it was
man,
beautiful. It was
missed
worth
out.
every
Last
drop.
week we had to buy the stuff from Walmart. Man.
All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for being on there. Thanks for my panel members as usual. And this is the Rasquatch Wrestling to the Max. We're coming to you guys to figure out this fantasy booking. And again, thanks everyone for being on here. Feedback's always appreciated. Thanks very much. Court is adjourned.